Welcome back to what is potentially our last mock draft of the cycle, depending on if I can churn out another one before the draft, which right now is about 15 days away. In this one, I've attempted to project a few trades here. As always, this is extremely hard to do, so bear with me. Otherwise, I think this one turned out pretty fun. Here at number 1, we have the Mavericks doing the obvious and taking Duke superstar Cooper Flagg. At 6'9" with an overpowering two-way skill set, Flagg's set to infuse Dallas with some life again, which is much needed after their previous season. There's zero reason for the Mavericks to field calls for Flagg. They're set to get what is likely the single highest impact player on a rookie deal save for Victor Wembanyama, and should be able to compete in the West for the next few years if they can get healthy. Second overall, we have the Spurs taking Rutgers star Dylan Harper, by all accounts a perfect fit in the San Antonio system. There's reportedly a few teams who could be looking to nab number 2 from San Antonio and kick off rebuilds with Harper at the helm, Milwaukee, Phoenix, etc. I generally advise against this for the Spurs. You'd be hard-pressed to build a guard in a lab better for Victor Wembanyama. Harper's a downhill supernova, capable of creating his own shot at the rim with ease, but one who can thrive off-ball too with transition prowess, solid cutting, and what should be an improvable jumper. It's easy to envision Harper as Wemby's star running mate in a matter of years. There's not too many trade packages for number 2 that intrigue me for the Spurs opposed to having Harper for the next decade. The only one that slightly piques my interest would be Devin Booker, and honestly as Phoenix, I think I'd consider that. Here at number 3, we have our first trade of the mock, but a potentially realistic one given the 76ers are looking to get back to contention after a down year. There's numerous trade down partners here for Philly, including the Jazz, Wizards, and Nets, but I tried to think of teams that could actually use Ace Bailey specifically, and I don't necessarily love the fit with any of those teams, but I landed here on Portland. In this theoretical deal, Portland offloads 2 great players in Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons, but adds the number 3 pick outright without giving up number 11, and adds a potential reclamation project in Paul George. The 76ers give up George and number 3, but add 2 high-impact starting level players to immediately add to their core. Grant specifically at this point is a likely upgrade over George. You also get a phenomenal off-guard option in Simons, but maybe most importantly shore up some future flexibility in offloading the massive PG contract. Portland eventually takes Bailey, who in theory would be the perfect piece to grow in their current core of Scoot, Sharp, Klingon, and more. And even better, he could learn from PG, which would be a great outcome for Bailey as a 6'9" wing. The good news here is that there's a ton of flexibility for both teams to add more to this trade if the other feels they're on the short end, but I really think the general bones of this deal works and makes sense for both teams. At number 4, we have the Charlotte Hornets, who have infinite options in terms of roster construction with the number 4 pick. Here, they'll grab Duke center Kamon Malawach, a pick floating out there as a report, one that I haven't touched on but I think is a real possibility. At 7'2", Malawach has that unteachable length and size and should be the next in line of these solid 7-footers to hit the NBA court and provide some immediate rim running and shot blocking with room to grow. While this might seem high for Malawach, he's certain to be in the good graces of at least a few front offices due to his size and skill set, and Charlotte, who's valued size and versatility recently and attempted to offload a similar player in Mark Williams a few months ago, could be one of those front offices. Alongside LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, Malawach would anchor the paint and be a weapon around the ring. At number 5, we have the Utah Jazz taking a shot on VJ Edgecombe, a pretty easy gamble if he falls this far, which isn't a given. At around 6'4", Edgecombe toes the line between guard and small wing well, using his innate and functional athleticism to dive bomb the rim, play frenetic defense, and just generally make a positive impact. If things come around in the scoring efficiency department, he could see stardom in his future, but if not, he'll still be a playable and potentially even starting level wing who can gap fill on offense, defense, and even playmaking. Utah can stand to take these upside swings given where they're at right now, but wouldn't be mad if Edgecombe just ended up a solid contributor. In the least, he offers a different kind of look than the guards they've drafted lately. At 6th overall, we have the Washington Wizards swinging for the fences on Oklahoma guard Jeremiah Fears, one of the youngest standouts of the season. Fears went for 17 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds per game with the Sooners, showing off elite handling and scoring juice, though his efficiency at all 3 levels could be refined. Fears has such a great baseline for improvement. Decent size, horizontal athleticism, great scoring instincts, a clean jumper, production outside of offense. There's a chance a future perennial all-star is just waiting to be molded. The Wizards have shown to value this in their backcourt, taking Bub Carrington last year, and I think grabbing Fears as a malleable potential star makes sense for Washington given their fall to 6. At number 7, we have the New Orleans Pelicans nabbing Texas star Trey Johnson, who sees a slight fall relative to where his pre-draft stock is right now. Johnson feels destined for NBA bucket getting, seeing over 20 points per game for the Longhorns with some of the most blistering and versatile three-point shooting in the class, 40% on nearly 7 attempts per game. He'd fit pretty snugly in the Pelicans' core, likely seeing a decent amount of offensive opportunity, be it off-ball alongside the current roster or even on-ball with his own ability. Best of all, Johnson has sneakily great passing and could offer that secondarily for the Pelicans. At number 8, we have the blank slate Brooklyn Nets taking a gamble on one of the youngest and highest upside players in the class, Noah Asenge. Seeing a massively productive season with Ratio Farm Ulm at just 18, Asenge is likely climbing up boards. He's forward sized at 6'9", fluid like a wing and as long as a center, and is just a transition monster with what could be an improvable game as a whole. I don't think it's the worst gamble for Brooklyn to take a shot on Asenge in hopes of him becoming a genuine star. If the handle tightens up and the three-point shooting continues to get better, that's likely what he'll be. And even if Asenge doesn't land on the high side outcome-wise, he doesn't need to improve much to become a productive NBA player, making him a worthy gamble for Brooklyn's first top pick in some time. 9th overall, we have the Toronto Raptors picking Illinois guard Kasparas Jakučionis, pound for pound one of the more interesting players in this class. At around 6'5", Jakučionis functions solidly as a handler for the Illini, averaging 15 points, nearly 6 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. I know the Raptors are constantly set on size and length, but I think Jakučionis makes so much sense for a team as a handling guard who can run offense and set up others, but also one who could moonlight as a wing playing off of other guards, namely Emmanuel Quickley. He could be a star upside bet for the future, or just a solid rotational guard who can add shot making, set up passing, and more for Toronto. At number 10, we have our next trade, the Orlando Magic jumping up from number 16 to 10 to stop the slide of Duke sharpshooter Con Knippel. I'm on record plenty saying that I like Knippel's game. He's higher upside than people think, but it's not out of the question he falls below where he's being mocked in the top 5 to 7 right now, given some athletic limitations and the fact that teams could just be looking for home run swings. Nearly every single pick we've made so far has been teams hunting for star upside, and I think that makes sense given who's picking. Knippel is basically lab built to aid the Magic. He's an elite shooter. They ranked dead last in three-point shooting in the NBA last season. He's a better handler than expected. They don't have a true point guard, and I think he'll be a solid defender who could blend into a good defensive team. And he's overall just a player who could do so many positive things in the Magic's backcourt. Here, Orlando offloads their 2026 first to jump 6 spots and land Knippel, but again, he's such a perfect fit, I think this trade makes plenty of sense. The Rockets pick up a first to move back just a handful of spots, and they get a pick that's somewhat connected to Phoenix as well, meaning it could be an asset that could get a Suns trade across the finish line. This essentially only happens if Con does see a true slide, which is possible, but not super likely. At number 11, we have the Portland Trail Blazers, now with their second lottery pick, gambling on Washington State turned Duke commit Cedric Coward. Coward's reportedly shooting up boards, having had quite the combine, coming in at 6'5" without shoes, a 7'2" wingspan, and doing solidly in agility, leaping, and shooting drills. He's a longtime collegiate player who went from D3 basketball to 2 seasons with Eastern Washington, before playing just 6 games at Washington State due to a torn labrum. Coward's somewhat the inverse of most of these lengthy projects, having great shooting already built in and a workable offensive game as a whole, though his defense could stand to improve. There's warranted questions about his competition level, but this is a worthy pick for Portland given they've already nabbed Ace Bailey here, and could always use more length and shooting on the wing. At number 12, we have the Chicago Bulls making their first true rebuilding-esque pick in some time, grabbing developmental jumbo guard Yegor Demon. Demon saw a decent season for BYU, showing plenty of good, 10.6 points and 5.5 assists, but also plenty of areas for improvement. General efficiency, defensive consistency, better advantage creation, and more. Having traded Josh Giddey 1-for-1 for Alex Caruso last offseason, the Bulls seem ready to offer the Aussie a massive deal, but if they truly value that archetype moving forward in this pseudo-rebuild, drafting Demon makes plenty of sense. Giddey is likely the best NBA comparison we have for Demon, though the Russian guard probably projects to shoot the 3-ball and defend better at the next level. At number 13, we have a fairly popular pick in the Hawks taking Maryland's Derek Queen. It's one I've made before and one that I stand by, given it offers the Hawks a drastically different frontcourt look than they've rolled out next to Trae Young. Queen plays with skill and feel opposed to high-level athleticism, having averaged 16.5 points in leading Maryland deep into the tournament as a true freshman. He can score on the interior, has the makings of a jumper, he can pass, handle in moderation, and plenty more. I think there's a world where in a few years Queen is coming into his own as a scorer both in the paint and off the bounce, and it takes a ton of pressure off Trae Young while allowing both to thrive. Rounding out the lottery is a pick I made last time, but one that just makes too much sense given where San Antonio is at presently. Carter Bryant at 6'9" offers some of the best 3-and-D attributes in the class. He's a grizzly defender capable of hounding at the point of attack or playmaking off ball with lane clogging and shot blocking. He can hit threes with a projectable jumper, rim run with efficiency and moderation, and more. All of these things are needed for every team, but especially one led by 7'4" phenom Victor Wembanyama. Bryant could be such a solid piece in that core for the long haul, be it in the starting lineup, playing the 3 or 4, or coming off the bench. At number 15, we have the Golden State Warriors, one of a few teams that currently don't own a first-round pick, trading up with Oklahoma City to nab Colin Murray-Boyles of South Carolina. The Thunder have 2 firsts this year, but given they're in the NBA Finals and still have developmental players waiting on deck in Ousmane Dieng, AJ Mitchell, and last year's number 12 pick Nikola Topic, it's not out of the question they kick these picks down the road, which they do here. At 6'7", Murray-Boyles is one of the best pure defenders in this class. He has a nice, strong interior game, and some funk with the ball in hand, passing, or even putting it on the floor. He gets the Draymond Green comp, and while of course he isn't likely to become the all-time player that Draymond is, there's certainly some archetypal overlap. With this pick, Golden State would be gambling that CMB could learn enough in the next few years under Draymond to continue carrying on some version of his impact long-term. After trading down, the Rockets make a pick that I made for them in my last mock, but makes a bit more sense at number 16 opposed to the top 10. Rasheer Fleming stands at 6'9" with a now confirmed 7'5" wingspan, offering interior efficiency and 3-point scoring. Additionally, he's a solid defensive playmaker on the weak side, clogging lanes and offering weak side rim protection. Houston needs just about all of those things, but especially the 3-point shooting and rim protection alongside center Alperen Şengün. At number 17, we have a pick that's popular with both national draft experts and myself, Michigan State's Jace Richardson to the Timberwolves. Despite being a smaller combo guard, a pretty touchy archetype as far as the NBA goes, Richardson was an analytics darling, showing some of the best freshman impact in the country with 12 points, 3 rebounds and 2 assists on elite 49, 41, 84 shooting splits. He's a true combo guard, flowing between point and shooting guard well, able to handle, shoot, pass, and more. In Minnesota, Richardson would function well as an offensive settler in a backup role, but could also add some scoring and defensive impact when Anthony Edwards is wanting to handle the ball too. Regardless, Minnesota needs to shore up its backcourt, and I think Richardson is a strong candidate in this range. At 18, the Washington Wizards get a steal in nabbing a player I have a lottery grade on, Georgetown's Thomas Sorber. Sorber had a great frosh season with the Hoyas, but fell somewhat by the draft wayside due to a season-ending foot injury, but averages of 14.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.4 assists, and 3.5 stocks per game were very strong. Not to mention he came back with great combine measurements, 6'9" without shoes, and a ridiculous 7'6" wingspan. All signs are pointing towards Alex Sarr being more of a wingy 4 for the Wizards, meaning Washington could easily gamble on a fun, malleable 5 prospect in Sorber. At number 19, we have the Brooklyn Nets using their second first-round pick on Asa Newell, a hybrid big who saw a massively productive season in the SEC. Averaging 15.4 points, 7 rebounds, and a steal and block per game for Georgia, Newell wowed with motor, touch, and instincts, showing the bones of a hyper-productive NBA big man. Given his tweener status, he'll likely need to come around in the shooting department, but he does feel closer to doing that than plenty of his big counterparts in this draft. For Brooklyn, this is an easy gamble on a high upside big, who in the least projects to do baseline things pretty well. At number 20, we have another popular pick, but one that makes sense for various reasons, Miami taking point guard Nolan Traore. You know the story at this point. Traore was a top 5 prospect in this draft, but didn't improve enough with St. Quentin to really warrant keeping that buzz. Still, he came back great size-wise on official measurements, 6'3" barefoot with a 6'8" wingspan, and he has obviously great horizontal athleticism and saw a better second half of the season. The draw for Traore is tapping into that previously top 5 stock, which I'd trust few teams more to do than the Heat. They have an essential point guard vacancy, some runway to give Traore, and the track record of doing more with less and developing these types of picks. At number 21, we have Ulm's Ben Saraf being drafted by the Utah Jazz, a fit I've long loved, though Saraf's recent play with Ulm could have his stock soaring much higher than this. An essential full-time handler for a pro team at just 19 years old, the 6'5" Saraf has shown some awesome stuff as a passer and general scorer, though he has a ways to go in shoring up his 3-level scoring and general defensive acumen. Still, the signs are there for Saraf given his poise for Ulm and his handling wing archetype being sought after by NBA orgs. The Jazz have so far gambled on smaller guards and ones that can be volatile passing-wise on a play-to-play basis. Saraf would give them a great experimental piece that could hone his on and off ball skills in Utah's core for years to come. Here at number 22, this is a pick I straight up ripped from Jonathan Wasserman's Bleacher Report mock, if you watched that video, but it's one that I love and I think points to the primary reason I myself get a little out there on my own mocks. It just offers a different line of thinking, and this pick ultimately ended up being one that I really agreed with. Maxime Reynaud is a 7-footer out of Stanford who comes with one of the better perimeter games we've seen from someone his size in some time. He scored over 20 points per game, doing so on 35% shooting from beyond the arc on 5.5 attempts per game. With Atlanta having already swung on Queen, who offers no real rim protection or shooting threat at the moment, Reynaud's a strong option here late to pair with him. With these two picks, Atlanta would completely overhaul their front court rotation alongside Trae Young, and in my opinion, for the better. At number 23, we have the Indiana Pacers gambling on Liam McNeely, UConn's big-bodied connective forward. At around 6'8", McNeely saw a decent season with the Huskies, but one that was marred with some injuries that caused his stat lines to be less flashy. Still, the talent is obviously there for the 5-star, having averaged 14.5 points, 6 rebounds, and 2.3 assists. McNeely feels like an easy spiritual successor to several Pacers, having what should be blistering 3-point shooting, high IQ passing, and just a generally positive game as a whole. Offensively, he'd fit like a glove in Indy with room to work on his defense. Here at number 24, the Thunder effectively kicked this can down the road too in trading their number 24 pick to the Lakers for a highly protected future first. With the pick, the Lakers select international center Joan Behringer, one of the few players who I think fits this LA core well. It's no secret the Lakers need a rim-running center to pair with Luka Doncic. As one of the best pick-and-roll players we've seen, it is his most potent weapon. Behringer, at 6'11" with what seems to be an insane wingspan, is a highly mobile run and dunker with an insane catch radius and some intriguing defensive chops too. All things that could be immediately good next to Doncic. Behringer is among the youngest players in this draft, but rolling, jumping, and dunking is pretty universal, as showcased by Derek Lively's 5 points at Duke, but 8.8 as a Year 1 Maverick. So I think Behringer could, to some degree, hit the ground running. At number 25, we have our final trade, Milwaukee using 3 seconds to jump into the first round to nab Colorado State's Nick Clifford. Having already offloaded future capital to land Knipple, the Magic are fine to bow out of their late first here, grabbing some seconds to replenish their stockpile just a bit. In grabbing Clifford, the Bucks get a seasoned handler who is massively productive at the college level. But he does so many things well as a general wing play too. 19 points, 10 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1.2 steals. Clifford should be able to shoot, dribble, pass, defend, and so much more, at least at an okay level, even early in his NBA career. With Lillard now out for the foreseeable future, gambling on a long-time college hybrid in Clifford makes some sense for Milwaukee. At number 26, we have the Brooklyn Nets gambling on Michigan big Danny Wolf, one of the more fun prospects in the whole thing. At 7 foot, Wolf has an odd amalgamation of skills for a big, honestly looking more so like a wing. He faces the basket nearly all the time, handling the ball, shooting from beyond the arc with ease, and dishing with both hub-esque and wing-style passing prowess. The issue is that Wolf wasn't necessarily prolific even as a junior, scoring 13 points, grabbing 10 boards, and dishing 3.6 assists with a lot of turnovers per game, and to top it all, he's pretty confined athletically. Despite that, he's an easy bet for most teams this late, but especially Brooklyn, who could let him work into the NBA at his own pace, or just throw him into the fire and let him work out the kinks early in his career. With their 4th and final pick, the Nets gamble on Le Mans Noah Penda, a 6'8" defensive stopper who projects to be a high-level role player in the NBA if he can put the offensive puzzle pieces together. Penda is big-bodied at 20 years old, but already a stifling defender in a ton of facets, garnering steals and blocks in the LNB elite. He's an improving scorer, able to do the simple stuff, but still needs massive refinement in this area as a whole. For Brooklyn at number 27, Penda's an easy bet to become a rotational player sooner rather than later, with staunch defense and a solvable scoring package. At number 28, we have the Boston Celtics gambling on one of my favorite prospects in the class, Arkansas forward Adu Thero. At around 6'7", Thero does all the small things on the court while still maintaining a mostly productive face value game. 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.6 steals while digging in the trenches for Arkansas last season. He should be a solid NBA defender from day one, and the rest of his game should translate along with his frame and athleticism. For Boston, Thero would serve as another stingy rotational piece that could provide a nice baseline in reserve, and one that could develop some with Tatum essentially out for next year. At number 29, we have the ever-quizzical Phoenix Suns, who at this point seem to be trending towards a rebuild opposed to running it back with their aged core. And in turn, they'll draft Illinois wing Will Riley here. Riley's got some flaws, certainly. He wasn't necessarily efficient at every level, has a bit of an awkward movement style, and has a long ways to go in becoming an impactful defensive player. But it's all quelled somewhat by the fact his shots just go in, and the fact he could become a shot-making force as a tall, connective wing. He scored in double figures as a true freshman in a tough system, along with his 2-to-1 ATO, pointing to some high potential upside regardless of the lows. For Phoenix, he'd be a worthy gamble as they seemingly enter their next era. Rounding out the first round and our video is the LA Clippers. Here, they'll draft one of the better upperclassmen in the country in Walter Clayton Jr. In leading the Gators to a national title this year, Clayton Jr. showed off his combo guard prowess, handling the ball plenty and getting downhill in the pick and roll, while maintaining his status as one of college ball's best shooters, 39% on nearly 8 attempts from beyond the arc. Clayton Jr. would of course be a solid play for the Clippers next year, be it handling and settling offense as the backup point guard, or shooting next to James Harden. But I also think he's got some sneaky upside too, that a soon-to-be rebuilding team wouldn't mind having as an early pick, especially here at number 30.